Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm going to ask everyone to get seated if you can, please, so we can kickstart our next panel. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for being here. I know it's just before the end of the FHS show, and there's flights to catch and there's offices to get back to, but it's a really important topic, so thank you so much for considering it and being here. I'm just going to introduce all of our panelists, but I'm going to ask them to come up on stage first, please, if that's all right. Please come on up on stage. Thank you. All right. So we're talking today about integrating SDGs, or Sustainable Development Goals, into our core business strategies. And we have a very amazing panel up here on stage to share their expertise on the same. So I'm going to start with Atul. Atul Chopra is the founder and CEO of FreshOnTable. If you haven't heard of it, it's an agri-tech platform that promotes produce from local farms. He began this journey in the UAE in 2019 and is now working with over 250 fine dining restaurants and hotel chains. Next, we have Bryanne Tait. She's the Global Senior Director of Sustainability at Jumeirah Group. She has a very interesting career here. She's now working on minimizing operational impact and protecting people and planet, but she's previously had sustainability roles for over 2 decades in the energy arena, which is through Shell, Eon, and even Masdar in the UAE. Looking forward to talking to her. And we have with us Edward. Edward is the founder and CEO of Switch Foods, a passion project. So he's been in the food production industry for over 18 years and founded Switch to help fix global food systems. And today you'll find this product in every major supermarket in the UAE. And next up, we have Kelly Timmins. She's the Executive Director, Sustainability and Marine Animal Operations at the Atlantis, Dubai. She has over a decade of experience working with aquariums in the UK, Singapore, and Dubai, and has led several conservation programs at Resorts World Sentosa, which I'm sure everyone here has already been to. Okay, so let's get started with the discussion. I think we all agree that businesses, organizations are really vital to getting the SDGs into action and moving the needle on all of these SDGs. But hospitality, food, beverage, these are all very complex businesses. And there's a lot of different sectors within this big industry that really still struggle. So I just want to talk about how you've integrated SDGs into your day-to-day operations. So I'm going to start with you, Atul, if that's okay.
Well,
Obviously,
I was told to be short, so I'll try to be short.
No, I promise to be kind.
Well, I have been in the enterprise business most of my life. I think I do understand the challenges. And one of the single biggest challenge we encounter in our industry particularly is consistency and quality. Now, consistency becomes very relevant given the complex climate we have in this region. Especially, I can tell you, 4 months is literally bloodbath, and I was telling Edward earlier today that it's not only the demand side, but also the supply side, because the agri-tech, it has evolved, but has a long way to go. But I can tell you that each year it's getting better. So the whole progress has been so enduring that I think in about a couple of years, we'll be very much able to manage that challenge as well. Yeah. QC is challenged, but I think we have our farms which are producing some of the best produce in the world today. And I was earlier, interacting with 150 delegates from the United States, and they were absolutely blown away seeing the quality of produce we have in this region. So these are, from my point of view, 2 very big challenges. But thanks to all the support we're getting from the industry, I think we are very confident we'll be getting over those here.
Absolutely. We had 2 chefs up on stage just before this who attested to everything you've just said. But taking that conversation a little bit further, Edward, Atul's just talking about quality control, innovation in production, and really sort of changing the the status quo of agriculture here. And you're in the food business on another side of it. But also innovation in production is very important. You've already got the Middle Eastern taste buds down. You have a great product line for this taste palette. But are you also addressing the big expatriate market that we have here and innovating those tastes into your product lines?
Yeah, so absolutely. When we speak about plant-based meat alternatives, still the expat community is actually the leading buyer of these products. Unfortunately, still there's a lack of awareness, education about climate change, about health in our region, especially with the local and Arab communities. So when we do consumer surveys or consumer insights, we still find that the majority of our buyers or consumers, whether out of home or in home, are still the European and North American expats. So we're very attentive to this fact. Obviously, what we produce also can be incorporated into different cuisines. So our minced meat, which is our biggest seller, especially for restaurant and hotel groups, can be incorporated into any type of dish. And most recently, we have engaged with large hotel and hospitality groups for specific demands that they have. So we work, I can mention, we've just completed a project with the Hilton Group across the Middle East to develop a breakfast sausage for them. So they want to replace, their aim is to replace all breakfast sausage at their breakfast buffets with a plant-based, vegan, sustainable sausage. So we're very engaged and we work. Part of us being here and part of what we offer to our customers is the ability to customize and create dishes based on their demand.
Yeah.
And we do that regularly with a lot of large hospitality groups.
Very interesting. So now that you've talked about hospitality, let's go to Bryanne and stay on the food topic. So obviously you've come from the energy sector and a lot of the principles remain the same in terms of energy, water, etc. But when it comes to food, the F&B side of things, and Jumeirah being as active as it is on the food scene, tell us how you're sort of engaging with the local farmers, the suppliers, keeping up with creating a lower carbon emission footprint, obviously, but also getting local tastes in and making sure you're still stimulating local economic growth, working with these farmers. And obviously, since you're a global business, it's good to hear how you're doing this, not just in the UAE, but from a global perspective, if you can.
Sure.
Thank you.
Is this working?
Yes, it is.
So if I may sort of paraphrase the question a little bit more, I think it's about how do we frame and deliver sustainable food and beverage experiences. So it's not just about local supply, but it's about a whole lot of other things, including transparency of supply chain. How are we avoiding food waste? Do we know where our food comes from? And are we able to actually get further transparency on where those things and ingredients actually come from? And how does the guest actually expect those from us? So it might be cage-free eggs, for example. It might be seafood is a big one, right? And so we partnered with, for example, Seafood Souk Trace here in the UAE. And then hopefully we'll be able to take that abroad eventually, which aims to track where does our seafood come from throughout the value chain so that when the guest sits at the table, they can scan sort of like a QR code and be able to know right down to the boat and the date that particular item was caught. So in a lot of cases, there's a huge amount of intransparency in the seafood industry, for example. And so, someone might be selling, tilapia as, sea bass, right? I mean, it happens. But unfortunately, it's that transparency or intransparency that we're trying to crack. So I think when it comes to not just local supply, so one could also argue, for example, that local supply for the seafood industry in the UAE was actually unsustainable for a really long time.
Absolutely.
Right, and Sheikh Fahim, who lobbies on a number of fronts when it comes to the seafood industry, and he's a good sponsor of our turtle rehabilitation clinic, for example. He raised this to the attention at the very highest levels within the UAE to say, guys, I know that we want to have sustainable seafood. I know that we want to have local supply, but it's actually not sustainable. at the moment. And then so how do we make sure that those fish stocks replenish? How do we make sure that we control the stocks, et cetera, et cetera? So working with partners in these very, very niche areas, working with FreshOnTable, of course, this allows us to track how many miles we've saved when it comes to the transport of our food supply. But the proportion of emissions when it comes to food supply and ingredient supply is actually smaller than the carbon footprint of the ingredient itself, especially when we come to things like the protein sector. And this is where I think Switch is incredibly interesting, is that how do we decarbonize our food and beverage system, not just from transportation, but also from the ingredients, and how do we get used to incorporating more innovative ingredients within our menus. And it's also about bringing the guest along on that journey.
Absolutely.
So it's not just what do we want to do, but how do we engage the guest? And a lot of people would say, we don't care, but actually do they? And so we need to engage
I'm going to
them.
ask you to hold that thought. I do want to come back to the consumer and all of these B2C environments. So we will come back to that, I promise. But just shifting gears slightly here, Kelly, you're the only one on the panel that has marine experience, and that's also a very important SDG 14, life below water. So I want to hit on that as well. So you have this wonderful new initiative, well, not new, it's been on for 3 years, I think, Project Atlas. So it's guest-led, guests come in, they give you $1 during their stay, and then you use that to fund really innovative and unique solutions for the marine sector. So you've already funded some really amazing businesses here in the UAE and abroad as well. I just want to know then, how do you bring in some of those innovations and solutions into your business operations? Particularly because at Atlantis, Dubai, between the 3 destinations that you have 65,000 marine animals. I did not know that till I researched you. That is amazing. So tell us about that.
I promised you, I counted them yesterday. It's 65,000. But basically, we have obviously Atlantis Dubai. It's home to Atlantis the Royal, the new property, Atlantis the Palm, and also Aquaventure. We have 65,000 marine animals on site, and everything that we do, we try to engage the guests and get them involved in kind of what we're doing. And because we're a marine-themed resort, it's just so important that we concentrate on, SDG 14, life below water, and that we have a really strong core pillar dedicated to that. So the Atlantis Atlas project, basically what we do is actually not the guests giving us this money. Every time a guest participates in a program, from our revenue, we stick that in a different budget, we collate it for the year, and then we distribute it out to local and international partners who focus on marine conservation and sustainability initiatives. So one of those is obviously Seafood Zouk that's been spoken about, and we actually funded their development of the platform, which is an innovative platform which they used our procurement team and our food and beverage team in order to curate this platform, which would make it simpler for chefs to make decisions on what is the most, I would say, sustainable choice. So what is more traceable? It gives you a traceability score. So from an operational perspective, when you're looking down a list of seafood products and you want to curate your menu, you have a score next to it which indicates what's a good choice and what may not be a good choice. And then what's not a good choice, we can go back to them and try and work with the supplier to get more information, or just eliminate it from our selection. So you can see how, we like to invest in new innovative solutions, but we like to implement them into our operation. And similarly, we also supported Gumbook, who are obviously a social enterprise here in the UAE, and we've been supporting their Save the Butts campaign, which is where they pick up cigarette butts and take the plastics and change them into usable building materials. And now they're taking that into more of a kind of citizen science program as well, where they're going to be collecting more data to make informed decisions that they can provide to the government in order to kind of push that, I would say, that social program forward. But it all helps reduce marine litter, which comes back to protecting life below water.
Absolutely.
So it all comes full circle after a while.
Perfect. That sounds great. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit. Again, you were talking about revenues, etc. So let's talk about profitability, right? So obviously, a lot of the pushback or barriers that we have are related to cost. bringing sustainability into the business is a big cost, and we don't get ROI for a number of years, etc. But all of you are obviously very much engaged in developing all of these different work streams. So let's talk about profitability with purpose, right? So Atul, I'm going to go back to you again. Obviously, you're working in this local, very much local farming sector, but there's plenty of enterprises, let's say, that really pride themselves on bringing produce from all over the world and talking about seasonal menus, talking about ethnic menus, and the ingredients have come fresh off the boat from that particular area where the cuisine is from. So how do you really compete against that and remain profitable?
So first of all, let me say a statement. I think sustainability is your best form of ROI. I think if you invest in sustainability, you can't get a better return on investment there.
Agreed.
And then having said that, to your point, when the food doesn't travel, I think you don't lose the nutrition value and you don't lose the taste either. And our farms have now reached a level, I wouldn't say that they have everything, but I've seen the journey from just a few, maybe 50 odd SKUs to we have 500 SKUs today. And everything we do, at least on the platform, is harvested on demand. We don't store anything. So we have a tagline which says, maximum nutrition, minimum emission here. On the economics, it's very simple. When partners like these two support the farm has every incentive to grow bigger and to expand the size. Unit economics kicks in, and the price obviously drops. And I can confirm that to you with data that the price of the local produce over the last 3 years is either like this or it's like this, as opposed to everything else which is going like this. Now, of course, UAE practices manifest laissez-faire. It's a free economy. So we are always up against dumping. And I use that word very consciously because that's what happens, because many countries send produce to UAE not for the consideration of because it's agriculture, but for other considerations as well, be it currency arbitrage or whatever it is. But our farms have done an exceedingly good job of being very competitive. And even seasonal menus, we work with the chefs. We tell them all the time, because as I said earlier, 4 months are hard over here. But if you devise your menu based on what can be done in the rest of the months, I think you're giving the guest a wonderful experience on tracking what is freshly harvested on the table here.
Perfect. You make that sound really easy, I have to say. Edward, I wanted to also touch on being a business that has a heavy sort of funding machine behind it. Your investors are probably looking for profitability ahead of everything else, right? So you talked about hotels, innovating new menu items, things like that. Is that the next level of profitability now that you've hit every supermarket in the UAE already?
So let me answer let me answer to your first assumption. Actually, investors in venture-backed businesses are not looking for short-term profits. That's how it starts. They're long-term investors. They're patient money. They're looking for growth. They're looking for revenue ahead of profitability, at least at the growth stage of the company. Once we are at scale is when we can focus better on the unit economics and profitability. So that's on the investment side, and it's important for the audience to understand, because when you're raising money, how you raise capital, from who you raise capital is very, very important.
We need another panel on this one, right? For sure, yes.
Now, when it comes to growth, obviously, there are different ways of growth that we look at. So one, you have your market share within the category, which we track, and we're proud of where we are today at Switch vis-a-vis the current plant-based alternative category. There's also, which we always talk about, is actually growing the category as a whole. So we're not just interested in being a leader in a small category. How do we grow this category within retail and within food service? So working with partners on the retail side and on the hospitality side is very, very important. Then there's obviously growing into new markets, whether regional or global markets. Obviously, again, I repeat what I said in my first answer, is that this region is still a bit behind, lags when it comes to awareness and education around food and the importance of food choices. And just to give you a statistic, today in mature markets like the UK or the US, we see annual consumption of plant-based meat alternative at about 2 kgs per capita per year, while we sit at 80 grams per capita per year in this region. So we're 20x, they're 20x. So we have a big challenge, but we have a big opportunity. With every challenge, there's an opportunity. But I think the role of education, and not only around sustainability, I know this panel is around sustainability, but when we recently ran a consumer insight survey in the UAE across different nationalities and ethnic groups, we found that the #1 driver for trying or adopting plant-based foods into people's diet is health, right?
Sure.
And obviously, and second, which is important for the audience to know, is we find in countries like the UK, Europe, or the US, the second driver is sustainability, while here the second driver is actually ethics and animal welfare. So people are much more concerned about how we treat animal than how sustainable the products are. And again, because there lacks education within the system to understand of how our food systems, or what are the effects of our food systems on climate change and the environment. Today, the food system is the second largest emitter globally after oil and gas, and by just a tiny margin. Oil and gas are tackling this issue of sustainability, straight on, and they're investing billions on green energy, which helps when oil prices are high, while nobody talks about the food systems and their effect on sustainability. So this education and this awareness helps, and I know that today the UAE government, the regional governments have recently acknowledged the fact that the only way we can produce food locally is through food tech. And when I talk about food locally, I'm talking protein here. We've had vertical farms, we've had greenhouses, which have their sustainability issues as well. But to produce protein, you need tech. And they're behind it. And I think slowly you will see this government machine around education and awareness starting to come on.
Yeah, and we're going to discuss that right at the end. I do think the education and awareness piece is a big one. I'm going to move on and bring the conversation a bit back to the profitability bit. So Bryanne, I've also come from the hotel industry and was trying to embed sustainability initiatives. I used to work for IHG, and one of the things that's very difficult is to get owners on board with spending on all sorts of things that need to be retrofitted into properties, and then also convincing new owners and new build hotels. You're a little bit different because you own a lot of your properties, but is it still difficult to manage profitability and then retrofitting new builds and making sure that you have all of those systems working collectively, cohesively, without losing the luxury experience that you're so well known for?
So before I answer that question, I just want to leave a little anecdote about
Please.
sort of like alternative proteins. My son and I were walking through the grocery store about, a few months ago. And I said, his name is Gabriel. I said, Gabe, here, stick a toothpick in and grab a bite of, one of the chicken nuggets that they've got out for sampling. And he went, oh my God, that's better than McDonald's, which is saying something for a 9-year-old, right? And then I said, do you know what it is? And he said, no, it's chicken. I said, no, it's not, it's plants. And I said, why do you think that's a good thing? And he's like, climate change. So anyway, so I think when
I need to send my
presented
9-year-old to your house.
He's a 9-year-old, right? So
The new generation is way ahead of where we are.
I think so. So, on the profitability aspect, I think, look, one assumes that sustainability and profitability, by nature of your question, are mutually exclusive. And then if I add in an additional element, right, which is Jumeirah coming from the sort of ultra-high luxury sort of like band of the spectrum, that, again, that is mutually exclusive, when in fact the opposite is actually quite true. And so sustainability ultimately has an ROI. Sustainability ultimately is going to give you a payback period of some sort or another, whether that's OPEX, right? So there are a lot of low-cost, low-lying measures that you can implement, whether it's, for example, a 0.5 degree in air conditioning temperature, for example, or just the way that you do your backwash systems in your pools. Just having someone stand there and watch how you do it. So it gets into relatively technical things, and the guest doesn't even really need to know but you're actually doing it, right? The guest touch points, again, comes back to the storytelling, is that's where you're going to bring them along and start asking questions of our competitors, of our peers, of our, otherwise. So we just like any other kind of business investment, whether that's through our managed properties, whether that's our owned properties, there's always a business case and a financial model that needs to be done, right? So what's the ROI? And we do the same thing with sustainability. And there are some things, for example, that might take a longer payback period, but that's where we start to look at alternative business models, like a build, own, operate, transfer, where we don't hold the CapEx on our balance sheet, or the owner doesn't hold it on their balance sheet, but rather we pay a service fee, and the solar industry is a really good one in the UAE, where you pay a certain amount that is benchmarked or indexed to the DEWA bill. And this is happening all over the world now, not just UAE. So sustainability and profitability, they're not mutually exclusive. In fact, they're 100% complementary. So I think the assumption that profitability and sustainability are not complementary.
Yeah.
I disagree with that, actually.
And Kelly, do you feel the same? Do you disagree?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you just said. I'm just living every single experience that you just communicated. But no, I totally agree. One of the interesting things that I've seen is the perception of even our team, say 5 years ago, where they would say to me, for example, we can't go and get the more sustainable option because it is more expensive. And I'd be like, guys, we need to challenge the industry. We need to go to them and leverage, well, what is the power of Atlantis Dubai with our volume, and go to our suppliers and have that open conversation with them about being able to give us, a decent price for whatever kind of product that we are requesting. And I think we've, as Atul said, there has been a decrease in local produce. And I think that's, again, part of collaborating and really building strong partnerships, like we have with FreshOnTable, with people in order to find a solution that's good for both the supplier and whoever is demanding that product. So, and I'm not going to repeat everything said because she summarized it perfectly.
Yeah. Sorry, Atul, you want to
So,
add?
with Hilton, let me give you statistics. We committed to them 450 tons of local produce 2 years back here. We ended up doing about 500 plus. This year, we've exceeded 900 tons here. And you asked the procurement, we keep getting very good tenders from them, which we're winning. And of course, there is a competitiveness in these tenders also, but also is a guest experience. It's when you tell the guest storyline that we are sustainable, I think there's enough evidence, whether you read the TripAdvisor statistics or so on and so forth. When the guests are choosing a hotel today, they are actually very, very conscious of that. Yeah. And I've seen enough evidence that even if you tell them that, I'm giving you something which is, let's say, fresh, cage-free, local egg, but it's got to be a little more expensive. Would you mind paying extra for it? I wouldn't. And nor would the kind of guests we're talking of here. So I think the two things that she rightly said go hand in hand with each other.
Yeah, and it relates back to health as well. All of those products are also good for me, so why wouldn't you pay a little bit more? Okay, so as you mentioned numbers there a little bit, I want to also talk about the most contentious topic in sustainability reporting. So again, going back to you, Atul, obviously one of the things that is fantastic about your platform is all of the tools that you have, all of the tech-driven tools. And obviously that helps your farmers, but it also helps the hospitality industry. So talk to us a little bit about that. Are you really an enabler of also getting this reporting out and making businesses a lot more articulate in all of the good things that are happening around the business because of your platform?
Yeah, so I think first of all, we are a catalyst. We are not a trader. So I think our whole mandate, or what we manifest, is to connect the farms with the HoReCa industry. And how you can make this happen is really through tech, because without tech, you can't do anything. It's a big enabler. So to the HoReCa partners of ours, we now give them access to a dashboard. They can actually choose their own SDGs, and they can decide for themselves what is the target. You may have seen that we demonstrated that at the FHS event over here. And to the farms, we are very data-driven. So we're sharing with them a very interesting set of data. And because the platform is so matured that I think we have the single biggest repository of the local produce today in the UAE. We can actually tell them what is that they should focus on. And we have enough case studies to demonstrate how we have changed the whole crop pattern from growing, let's say, tomatoes or marrow or something to a totally different crop. The farm, for instance, which is being visited this afternoon, was totally based on our data evidence. And they're doing strawberries right here in Jebel Ali. Who would have believed that before?
Yeah, absolutely. Edward, a slightly different question to you. Obviously, you're in production facilities, so you're mitigating impact and you're reporting on it. But you've mentioned the societal impact, the good health. I just want to know how you sort of incorporate that into your reporting or how you are storytelling on that.
So, you know, obviously at Switch we have three main pillars. We have the taste, which is number one, because we believe plant-based alternative adoption today, one of the biggest barriers is taste. The second is health. So we're very clearly communicate throughout all our digital, social, print channels that, you know, if you look at the back of our pack, it's a short list of ingredients, it's clean label, it's 100% natural, it's good for you. And the third is sustainability. So the way we operate as a business, we are not a conveyor line business to begin with. There's still a lot of creativity, artistry in everything that we do. We obviously have a sustainable footprint across our production lines. We have zero waste policy because we use the extracted protein and we transform it into food. So just to give you a stat around that. So today, 80% of the crops harvested globally go to feed animals, right? Who give us 17% of our food or our protein. So you imagine how much waste there is. And it takes 7.5 kilograms of crops to create 1 kilogram of beef or meat, while for us it's 1-to-1. So we try to communicate this, and we do a lot of, we participate in a lot of, events. I wouldn't call it charity or whatever, but we try to participate in events, even if it was for free, but where we can educate the consumer on the importance of food choices again. So it's not about. So we found in our short journey that conversion comes to driving trials. When people eat our products, I'm talking about Switch, and they like it. Then the stigma around plant-based food being or vegan food is not good. They drop that. So that big barrier you already. But then we also educate them around the health and sustainability pillars, and we provide them with all our claims. So we've worked really hard to be non-GMO, to be vegan. We have a life cycle analysis of our product as well. We've done a big study around this also to show really how sustainable our products are vis-a-vis conventional proteins.
Perfect, that's amazing. You're really living your mission of creating a dietary revolution for the benefit of the planet, if I got that right. Okay, so another more reporting-led question to both Bryanne and Kelly. The ESG framework for tourism businesses is coming up soon from the UN Tourism and University of Cambridge Oxford boards, and they claim that it's really going to change how we report and make it a more cohesive system. But obviously, we're all on our journeys already, and various different countries are coming up with their own reporting standards. We also have now in the UAE a new decree that we're now going to start reporting by 2025. So I'm just wondering, is this making you nervous at all? Are we being able to pull all of this together to have a really cohesive reporting system, or is it just going to create one more layer of complexity? Should we start with you, Bryanne?
And I think you kind of answered your own question to a certain extent, to be honest. Look, I'm sure the study will be very interesting and perhaps helpful in providing guidance. I haven't seen any drafts of it thus far. But look, it's a really crowded space right now. I mean, you've got GRI, you've got SBTI, you've got TNFCD, you've got IFRS, SASB, CDP. I mean, I could go on
CSRD and double
on.
materiality, and it's going to be triple soon.
I mean, it is really, truly a really crowded space. And not only that, though, but we have to also be mindful that for those of us, so I'll take Jumeirah as an example, we're part of a corporate that has multiple other business lines, and we need to be able to roll those numbers up into a corporate report. And so for us to then have, and I'll use Dubai as an example, we've got the Dubai carbon calculator, right? So we've got to fill that in. Plus we've got our own we follow GRI, and we have a reporting platform called Sfera that we've adopted, and so we report all of our data into Sfera, and then to have something else to report into, and then where does it stop at the end of the day, and who does it serve? And so I think you know, not aiming to be intentionally critical, but I think it should have been a bottom-up, you know, process rather than a top-down, we're going to choose to do this. Again, if it's a guidance note, if it's, you know, guidance to the industry, then maybe that will be helpful. But again, it's far too crowded as it stands right now. And then not only that though, but you've got the complexity of even within the hospitality industry, you've got, you know, various different stars of properties, like different sort of grades of properties. And even within that, you've got different typologies, right? So for us in, again, Dubai or Maldives, we've got these overwater villas. In Dubai, we've got Jumeirah Emirates Towers or Jumeirah Creekside, which is an office, so not an office tower, but a high rise. And then we've got sort of Jumeirah Zabil Sarai, which is more of a kind of like a mixed use, but much less dense property. And so I think you know, I think we need to simplify. I think we need to harmonize. I think we need to look to regulatory authorities that can help that harmonization process happen. Because as far as I know, there's 200 and something different certification bodies that are out there. That's way too much. How does a consumer decide? At the end of the day, our guest, our consumer, we need to make it easy for them. For our business partners, our booking partners, we need to make it easy for them, not more difficult, not more complex.
Completely agree. Kelly, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm conscious of time, so I'll keep
Yes.
it short. But I completely and utterly agree. At the moment, there is a lot out there, and for a consumer, they just don't know the difference between those certification programs, and you can't expect them to. So I think it is absolutely commendable that this is on the table, and they are trying to, I suppose, uniform everything. And I think that will be very dependent on the way in which they roll it out and the adoption, because, you know, we were talking about travel and tourism, you know, big businesses, small businesses, luxury down to non-luxury. And so, yeah, it just needs to be simple, concise, but the intent is completely and utterly correct.
Absolutely agree. 2 minutes that we have left to go. Very quickly, want to touch on consumers. You're all consumer-based businesses. You've said many times across the board that we need education, we need awareness. So very quickly, your thoughts on what we need to do to get the consumer more up to speed with what is going on. I think it's probably easier with your business, Atul. So let's start with you. You already have carbon calculators for your consumers.
Yeah, I think that we are more inclined to enterprises than the consumers directly. But at the end of the day, as I said, it's all about storytelling. So if our partners tell the right story to their guests, I think it's a win-win game for everybody.
Perfect. Edward.
So obviously we're a commercially driven organization. So if we talk about education, it's not really our role because it will always be taken as a grain of salt on what we're trying to sell. But we work very closely, or especially it has, you know, started over the past, let's say 6-7 months of working with different authorities within the UAE overall federal government and specific authorities within it on providing education. We work closely with schools as well, so we do workshops for them. We see that the new generation is very aware, much more educated about food, about climate change, about sustainability, about health than people, you know, with our generation. But I think also the importance of our food choices on health has taken a bigger role recently in discussions. So we see now talks about food in health-led organizations such as Pure Health in Abu Dhabi, for example, where they want to roll out a nationwide communication program about the effects of food choices on the human body. So we provide them data, and they want to also understand if we have the tools and the solutions and the products that help alleviate these concerns.
So more storytelling there. Perfect. Bryanne?
I mean, I'm not going to repeat anything that's already been said up until now. I think again, anecdotal story, when I came to work at Jumeirah, coming from the energy industry, and then in between that, working for climate disaster fund, fundraising with the Red Cross in Geneva, and working for climate offset projects, et cetera, et cetera. I thought, oh, this is going to be really simple. It's just going to be all about like, towels and amenities, right? Little shampoo bottles and not washing your towels. But I think we all need to recognize that this is, it's a big space, and the hospitality industry, at least, from my learning over the last 2 years, it's incredibly complex, it's incredibly deep, and it covers so many different subsectors, even within one hotel, right? You've got just about everything in there, from energy to agriculture to water to irrigation. I mean, you name it, it's covered, essentially. And so I think part of it also requires us to come together as an industry and be able to get over that hurdle. And I don't think we see that hurdle so much, but not to view it as a competitive advantage, but rather something that we can crowdsource and problem solve in a crowdsourcing way. And so I think this is one of the things that I'm keen to see more of, and I'm seeing the Global Alliance working on that, and the more local we can start to bring that as well, that's where the solutions are really going to come from. So just a sort of a bit of a side kind of tangent sort of comment on where I feel like this maybe could go to benefit all of us.
So it's collaborative storytelling.
Collaboration,
Absolutely. Love that.
collaboration, yeah.
Kelly, final thoughts before we close.
I would just say one of the things that we do is we just map out the consumer journey from the moment that they book to the moment that they arrive on property, and every single touch point, whether that be a housekeeper going into their room and what they say that may engage them, to it being in our F&B service team, to even if they meet a chef, and it's just all throughout the journey. What are the snippets of information that we can pass on to a guest that will make them remember that kind of fun fact? They are on holiday, and what will make them remember that fun fact delivered by from an authentic person, and that ties into your full narrative of what you're ultimately trying to communicate. But I think from my experience, definitely working in the kind of like zoo and aquarium world, the best bits of information are the fun facts that people will enjoy to hear, that they think are a little bit odd, rather than kind of percentages and corporate-driven things. So, just fun education.
So to conclude, it's creative, collaborative storytelling that creates positive change, that culture of change. Thank you so much. You've all been great. Those were great insights. Thank you so much. And thank you for listening, everyone.
Thank you for having us.